begin with you, Director Birwanwa. We want to understand, did you ever know about the letter from the Director of Public Health and Environment warning of impending disaster at Chitezi? Did it ever reach your desk?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, first let me really pass on our condolences once again to the bereaved families. That would not, I mean, I would not want to get into that directly now. Can I just say generally that KCCA was aware that there were issues with the Chitezi, and we were not sleeping, we were doing something about it. It's just that, unfortunately, what we were doing did not come fast enough. And if you check, for example, the ministerial policy statements of KCCA since 2019, 2018, you will find that every year we were requesting for resources to do what we had to do. When you have an issue with a landfill, you need to do some studies, you need to decommission it. All this costs some resources, a lot of resources that we did not have in our coffers. And then, of course, you must prepare a new place where you are going to. That also, you have to start with some studies and, you know, you do feasibilities, you do designs and stuff before you are able to move from one place to the other. So we were on our way. Unfortunately, this tragedy caught us before we could move.
All right, so you were aware as KCCA. Now let's get to Council Mujezi. Council, look, KCCA was aware, and we now have evidence that there was a letter that went to the top leadership of KCCA. The question is, who is legally liable?
Thank you, Karen. That's a very difficult question to answer. At the moment, we don't have enough information to make legal conclusions, at least that would be able to guide us on the way forward. However, under the Penal Code Act, rash, negligent acts are actually punishable by law. Section 227 of the Penal Code Act states that any person who, by any rash or negligent act not amounting to manslaughter, causes the death of another person, is liable to imprisonment and or a fine. So you also have issues of loss of life and also loss of property. You have criminal negligence that is also punishable by law, and you also have civil liability as a result of negligence that is punishable by law. Whereas recklessness is as a result of doing a dangerous act that causes damage or causes, like in this case, the loss of life or loss of property. Negligence is as a result of a breach of duty imposed by law. So yes, there is an aspect of criminal and civil liability, whether it's on the part of the authority or on the part of the persons acting under the blanket of the authority.
All right, let me bring in Honorable Minister Lydian Abero here. Honorable, one, there's a battle about who slept on the job. Then on ground, as a ministry, you're dealing with people who are claiming or masquerading as victims. As a ministry, we don't want to get into reports on how you rewarded compensation to people who are not victims. So what are you doing about that on ground?
Well, Canary, the ministry is working day and night to ensure that we exhume the bodies that have been buried and also take care of those who have been affected. And we have so far had 175 people in our shelter that has been provided temporarily. And we are also receiving support from the different people, the well-wishers. I was happy to see churches coming on board, people delivering, support to the communities. And we are also ensuring that these families that lost their beloved ones access the bodies of the loved ones. And as you know, through the President offered support of 5 million shillings for every family of the deceased and 1 million to those who were injured. And we are ensuring that we continue with the work to, exhume the bodies as fast as we can. So far, we have 14 excavators on site, and we today rescued 6 bodies. So that makes a total of 13. And we are still doing our best to ensure that the work is mitigated.
Let me ask this, because the President did hint at possible measures of evacuation so that the communities that could have been injured or even affected be evacuated to a safe place. Right now, what are the options available?
Yes, Canary, the first group of people that we had to, evacuate are those who are within the buffer zone that would stand a risk, of maybe getting another problem, a similar problem. So we relocated them to the temporary tents, and we are also in discussions with the Prime Minister, with the stakeholders to ascertain what is the best alternative on how to relocate these victims. Should we give them money? Should we identify where they should go, or should they occupy their land where they were and mitigate on the risk of the disasters? But I also want to note that since these incidents happened, the engineers from KCCA, from also the engineering brigade of the Army, worked on reducing the heap of the landslide. And we are also looking at making good use of the 4 acres that were still available as part of the land field, to dig a hole, and this time not pile the garbage on top of the other, but reduce it and dig a hole to dump, not to put a heap on what is there, as one of the mitigative measures, because we can't stop dumping drastically. Kampala would go into another crisis.
Let me get to Council Mujezi. Look, the Director of Physical Planning does state that there were not available resources to be able to control the situation, even when they had the right intentions. Does that then make individuals in KCCA or KCCA's government institution legally liable?
Well, that is it's a very tricky question. Under Article 28 of the Constitution, every individual who is accused of any offense has a right to a fair hearing. So at this point in time, we are not yet sure whether they have actually raised this defense. In the event that a criminal case is actually opened up, or a charge is sanctioned against these particular individuals, it remains available to them to explain themselves in the form of a defense. They will either plead guilty or not guilty, criminal liability. However, in a scenario such as this, it would be prudent for these individuals to perhaps discuss with the government as to the possibility of there being a compensation. It does not negate the possibility of a criminal charge against the individual. However, it would be a benefit towards discussing compensation with the responsible authorities.
But we're all talking just in case there's possibilities of litigation. Director Birwono, I want to ask you, look, in the future, now you've seen in the previous story that you just watched that Katabi Town Council has rejected this, the dumping of garbage from Kampala. It means that eventually KCCA will have to find a possible place for a landfill. In the event that it does, how do we prevent, you're a physical planner, how do we prevent eventualities like these ones, and what measures are you going to put in place? What are some of the safeguards? We are talking measures and also possible measures that could prevent such disasters from happening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Certainly KCCA is doing everything possible to make sure that this kind of calamity does not happen again. And you can be sure that there are maybe a lot of meetings, let me say, that are going on, planning, going forward tomorrow or the other day and stuff. Technologies, of course, are changing. When we started dumping at Chitezi, there was some technology. Now we have many other technologies that have come up, and we are able to do a lot of things better. And certainly going forward, we will not be going for the technology of the 1990s. We'll be going for the technology of today. We already have space. We have Dundu, for example, as you know. We have other possibilities. We might even get other possible places, but those are for...
Birwono, I want to ask you, what happened to Dundu? This has not been a possibility that has come into place, and for long this has been on and tabled even by the political group from the KCC and political leaders. What happened to Dundu? As a physical planner, do you think that there are standards that need to be enforced?
Yes, like I said, technologies are different. For example, at Dundu, we are not looking at land filling. We are looking at, for example, using the solid waste to produce electricity. There are technologies like those, and studies have happened already. Feasibility studies have happened. We have partners who we are working with to do that. So it will not be, and of course you get the citizens fearing it is going to be land filling, and so it is not going to be land filling. Like if we go to Dundu, of course, there are many options. We might actually choose somewhere else. We might go to Dundu, but wherever we go, it is not going to be the dumping that we have been doing at Chitezi. It will be different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Director Biribonwa. Now I want to get to you, Council Mujezi. Are we looking at huge litigation costs being slapped on KCCA? Do you see that as a possibility?
Definitely. In any case in which there is the loss of life or a loss of livestock, or in this case agricultural produce, there will always have to be a value to the property that has been damaged and to these victims of this particular incident. Where there is a likelihood that the person actually is able to prove that, then in the event that it is brought before a court of law, the court cannot shut its eyes to the possibility of this having been averted and it having not been done. And as a result, someone has to pay the costs. In this case, the authority, like in this case, as at the moment, the facts show that there were available tenets in relation to the possibility of their being damaged. And now that the damage has actually actualized, the resultant loss would have to be valued.
Now, lastly, to Honourable Minister Lydian Abel. Look, we understand you have a limited budget. We're in a rainy season as we speak in some parts of the country. Definitely, we'll see possible landslides and rivers with their banks bursting. Your budget definitely is going to be stretched out. We don't want to get into a situation where the victims of the Chitezi landfill disaster being at some point abandoned. What is your plan?
Canary, one of the key strategies in disaster risk reduction is early warning indicators. And when we pay attention to early warning indicators, then we are able to respond and avoid some of the effects of these disasters. Of course, you can't avoid natural disasters, but we can try and mitigate the effects. So tomorrow I will be in Bududa to have a meeting to discuss the issue of the resettlement, because we want to start on the exercise so that people can move away from Bududa, where they will be at risk, to a place where government procured land for them, government gave them 10 million shillings, and they are now ready to move. My appeal to the Bududa leadership is that we comply and we move away from these areas. So this is the same call across the entire country. We know the disaster-prone areas which have already been marked. The issue is prevention is better than response. It's better to be proactive and we work together with the local leaders and avoid politics when we are handling issues of disasters, because it really, really takes life. I am not happy as someone in government to come to respond to something which has already happened. But so I just want us to call upon Ugandans that we work together and mitigate this and avoid other disasters from happening. I have had sentiments from other places, people trying to politicize issues of disasters, and I want to say that, please, let's look at avoiding disaster from occurring and the effects as much as we can, much as we cannot totally prevent it.
Honourable Lydian Abel, who is the Minister in charge of Disaster Preparedness, thank you so much for speaking to us. Reina Munjezi, constitutional lawyer and Director of Physical Planning, KCCA, Vincent Biribonwa, many thanks for sharing your insights with us.